America's first canned dog food, Kennel Ration, invites you to television's original Zoo Parade. Brought to you direct from the world-famous Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago. Hi there, I'm Jim Hurlbut, and I'm here in the Lincoln Park Zoo, which is operated by the Chicago Park District for the benefit of people everywhere. This is our 77th Zoo Parade program today, and we're awfully glad that you and your homes across the country can be with us. Today on our Zoo Parade, we're going to study the habits of some of the large predatory animals here at the Lincoln Park Zoo. And we're also going to see our famous gorilla Bushman. We're going to have a special report on his physical condition from Dr. Lester Fisher, the zoo veterinarian. You know, you wouldn't think of animals as having personalities, but actually some of them are very much like people. Take this fellow, for example. Of course, the man to tell us about it is Marlin Perkins, the director of the Lincoln Park Zoo.
Yes, here we are in the Lion House at the Lincoln Park Zoo. Good afternoon. I don't just exactly shake where they have to have longer hair than they in the workhouse living now brown here I'm sorry, Kenneth.
Some type of neuritis limb animal.
You don't think
Some animals know to tap it. There's only about 1 pound a day. Use the phone. Not any direct. Any food where you have the story certain. Something could have sure do with.
Well, wouldn't give you a report condition from him. This is not very young. He's a vegetarian. He never ate a lot. His friend read the This down in America when she came over.
Kennel can add on to how to cook it. That's convenient. It's nutrition to things else too. Like pleasing as a roll. Look, I know you do on a steady diet. Most America's number one dog food.
The next animal that I use is one of all yours. Lured king with an animal there, and this animal was eternity and from there rubber district. The bug left. He's just an idea beside here, but large. It's a India and the Malay, and they do China, clear Africa, and most of Africa. So here, Indian leopard, that is the largest of the whole I've ever seen. They do have track called Jim, and they do climb trees where they prey upon those animals that they might be able to find in those trees. They also are big enough and powerful in being the fourth largest of cats of the world who prey on deer and antelope. They can bring down any of those animals. They're of their value in the regions where they live. They do have check on these great animals. Not all leopards are spotted like the one you see. In the Malay, you get black ones, gold Satan here. And the black ones are simply dark color phases of the spotted leopard. We call it melanism, which means just a darkening all over the body. So here is a black leopard that to us from the Malay, and he too has some spots in his body. In certain lights, you can see some of the spots showing through his almost black coat. And here you have a wonderful chance to see the claws shoot out from those sheaths as Bill Figby, his regular keeper, is playing with him with dusting brush. And that thing that he would do with almost all the animals in this building. Get used to this brush, and they like the action that it gives, and we like the chance of seeing something about our animals by having them stick their claws out and to see it like they did just then to see if their claws were all right.
Well, Marlon, not all the big predators are cats, though, are they?
Jim, how true. Here are some that aren't cats at all. Here are some wolves that were born in a den on a farm in northern Michigan, and they're just as year puppies. Bill Renner's holding the one on the left, and Tony Yasillo, regular keepers, on the right there. The farmer dug these up and sent them down here to us. We bought them from him. And Tony Yasillo, the keeper's done a fine job of taming these animals, keeping them tame, and raising them to the fine animals that they are today. Now, you know, wolves have an disposition, a reputation, I should say, being a little tracked down man or almost an animal. And while they are cunning and clever in tracking down animals, there are no records of wolves attacking man in North America. It is in the wild state. Now, they might attack them in a zoo after they grow up, and we'll have to be a little careful here with these animals when they get a little larger. But just now, they're still vigilant enough so that they can be handled on a harness. But you can see that, you know, all of those stories come from Europe, and we still haven't been able to substantiate the stories of wolves in North America. Any real records of them tracking people down, even in the bitters of the winter. And while they do hunt in packs, and they're very cunning in rounding up the animals that they prey on in that region, they still are one of the most intelligent of the predators of North America. But they're not the biggest of the predators of North America. The biggest predator in North America is a Kodiak bear that comes from Alaska. We don't happen to have any Kodiak bears in the Lincoln Park Zoo. So the other day we asked Marshall Head to go out to the Brookfield Zoo on the outskirts of Chicago and shoot some pictures of their beautiful big Kodiak bears. I'd like to show you a picture now. Well, here is the largest bear in the world, the Kodiak bear, which is also known as the Peninsula bear and the Alaskan brown bear. These films were taken in the world-famous Brookfield Zoo on the outskirts of Chicago through the kindness of my good friend Robert Bean, who is the director of the Brookfield Zoo. The bears in Brookfield Zoo are famous in that from this stock of bears, the young that have been born there have been traded and sold to other zoos in many parts of the world, such as in London and in Sydney, Australia, and in many of the zoos of the United States. The trio of bears that lives in this great mode-simulated rock exhibit dominate the setting on each end of the Brookfield Zoo, and you can see why that's true. In their native haunts in Alaska, these bears feed on a great variety of vegetation. They also catch salmon when they're running, and they prey upon other animals that they're able to catch. In the zoo, they're fed whole wheat bread, meat, fish, some vegetables, and some dog food. Each one of these bears learns a little trick to entice the food in his direction. And each one of them is good at developing some little special trick or trait that will attract attention to him only. That's true, I think, of all bears. Almost every bear has that trait of doing some little stunt or some little trick that will attract food in his direction. That's why it's so interesting to visit bears at the zoo, because each one has some special little trick or some little trait that he has there that sends the food towards him. Now here's the keeper tossing him a piece of bread. Whoops, bad catch, fellow. Try again. When a bear stands up like this, he stands over 10 feet tall. And when you realize that these bears weigh as much as 1,500 or 1,600 pounds, then you get an idea of how really large these bears are. They're the world's largest predators. And here in the Brookfield Zoo, they have ample space in this beautiful, large artificial mountain that has adequate dens down below and water pools and an exhibit from which you can see the bears from nearly every angle. Many of these bears learn to catch food as well as any catcher on a baseball team. In the wild state, these bears are quite dangerous, as you can well imagine when you realize that a full-grown Kodiak bear weighs more than the average saddle horse. When people penetrate the wilderness of Kodiak Island, where these bears live, it is necessary for them to be well armed, because like most bears, these great fellows are easily provoked to attack, and man would just be no match at all without a good rifle. And as he wants to go down that steep side there, he backs down instead of trying to go down head first. Even in cool weather, these bears that are used to the ruggedness of the cold, cold climate of Alaska have no hesitancy in going into their water pool, where they dive and pick up fish and the meat from the bottom of this deep pool. They can hold their breath for several minutes and are just about as much at home in the water of their pool as they are climbing up the rugged mountain side. When you realize that this bear is about 3 or 4 times the size of an American black bear and stands over 10 feet as he is here, then you get a good indication of how large these Kodiak bears are. They're one of the greatest of the game animals that are confined only to Alaska, and they make a tremendous exhibit in any zoo. I'd suggest that you go to your own local zoo and look up the Kodiak bear, because many zoos show this magnificent animal, the largest of all the bears in the world and the largest of all the predatory animals. Now, while he ducks under the water, let's just slip off. Jim, what is your impression of these bears?
Well, Marlon, my impression is that they're certainly tremendous animals, and I'm awfully glad to see them this way instead of meeting one of them on Kodiak Island. But before we go on, Marlon, I've got something I'd like to show our friends. They're beautiful dog plaques, and I wonder how many of them you can identify. This first one you ought to know, that's supposed to be the boxer. It doesn't look much like a boxer to me. Let's take a look at the next one. Oh, yeah, there's our friend the boxer. I knew he'd come up. At first, I think, was the beagle. And the next one, that's our old friend the collie. And this little guy is that wonderful little Scottish terrier. And then, I think you'd be right if you called this one an English Springer Spaniel. And I guess this next one is a favorite of a lot of people. That's our friend the Cocker Spaniel. And, of course, everybody knows that, the old dachshund. But how about this last one? Well, take a good guess, and I think you'll rate an A if you say that that's the old wire-haired fox terrier. Yes, sir. Of course, those are only 8 out of all the many, many breeds of dogs. But you know, there's one thing that all of them have in common. They all need a good, steady diet of meat. And that's why every one of them would thrive on a diet of kennel ration, you betcha. Because kennel ration is America's first canned dog food. It's chock full of lean red meat, U.S. government-inspected horse meat, and it has all the known dog health vitamins and all the vital minerals that every dog and every cat needs. Incidentally, folks, get your pencils ready. And if you were wondering about those plaques that we showed you, in response to a good many requests, we had them painted for us by Edwin S. McGargy, very famous painter of dog pictures. And you can get these pictures, these plaques, if you're interested in them, for a very special price. Any one of them you can get for just 2 kennel ration labels and 25 cents. But you know, you can save 50 cents by getting all 8 of them at once, because you can get 8 of them for $1.50 and 16 kennel ration labels. Just send the labels and the money to Kennel Ration TV, Box 5339, Chicago 77, Illinois, asking for the dog plaques. Of course, you get 1 or 2 or 3 or the whole set of these attractive plaques. And remember, friends, if you want to keep your dog happy and healthy and build a sturdy bone and muscle in him and a thick, glossy coat, then make kennel ration a daily habit. It's America's first canned dog food. Over 2 million cans are sold every single week, so gee, I guess it just has to be good. An alert, healthy dog needs, loves, and craves meat. Keep your dog meat happy with kennel ration. Marlon, what's next on the Zoo Parade?
Jim, next I'd like to show you a lady that at one time lived in Hollywood. Actually, her name is Lady. She is a puma that at one time was a performer in the movies in Hollywood. She and her husband, Jerry. Well, Jerry has passed on to the good hunting ground of pumas, cougars, mountain lions, whatever you'd like to call them. But Lady has, for these last few years, taken up her home here in the Lincoln Park Zoo. She, with Jerry, did many pictures in the West and was a star performer in her own right in several of these pictures in Hollywood. They used to take them right out, and many of the pictures you've seen of these animals were some of these pictures have been Lady and Jerry. She has had 38 youngsters so far, and right now she is rather retired, living the life of ease in this fine cage here. But they were at one time found all over the United States and Central and South America. They have a very wide distribution. They're a very active, fleet-footed cat, but they are the American mountain lion. Now let's shift our scene and take a look at the African lion. This is old Dillinger. Dillinger was purchased in 1933 by Alan King to have in the World's Fair here in Chicago. Alan King tried to break this cat in, teach him some tricks for the act, but instead Dillinger broke him, and he wasn't able to break this fine cat. So he was then named Dillinger because at that time Dillinger was a kind of an outlaw in the United States, a person that would not respond to any kind of law and order. And this fine cat now is one of the oldest cats in our collection.
Marlin, you certainly proved again that education can be interesting as the dickens, and I've enjoyed it. I know everyone else has. And what are we going to have next week?
Well, next week we're going to be in the birdhouse to see something about our giant cacique.
I hope everybody will be here to see the giant cacique next week. And until then, this is Jim Hurlbut speaking for Marlin Perkins and your television host, Kennel Ration, asking you to be back and reminding you to keep your dog healthy, happy, and alert.